Okay, this is a video for Objective 35. So again, you should be in the money textbook. So if you don't have that out, hit pause, go grab your money textbook. You're going to go through, it looks like it's page 65, which is the beginning of Objective 35. So Objective 35 on page 65. Again, I think there's 6 problems in this one. This will be the first objective in the for the test of 35-36, which is required for Yale and is extra credit for MIT. So again, I think I just said is 6 problems. I'm just double checking that this is extra credit for MIT. And yes. Let's cut this out and get started on the beginning of these 6 problems. I've got 2 problems on this page. We'll start with 152 here. So it says pie chart shows the percent of his $1,900 monthly budget to be spent on each budget category. So a budget is what he plans on spending and what he kind of wants to divide his money up on. The table shows how much money he actually spent last month. So sometimes things come up and you spend more or less on things than you normally would. Okay, so the budget is what you plan on doing, or how much money you have set aside for things. The question is, in which category did he go over his monthly budget? So what we do here is we take the categories, which is the titles around the chart here, and write those all right here. Okay, so there's 5 things the pie chart's made up of and the table. We figure out how much he has set aside, because right in the pie it is percentages, so we want to know how much money that is, because the table shows actual expenses and how much money. So we want to know how much he's budgeted for each of these based off the percentages. So it's based on this $1,900 that he has to spend each month. So what we do is we take the percentage in the pie chart, we move it to the left twice to make a decimal, and then times it by this. So we take this housing cost, we change that to 0.39, times it by 1,900, and we get 741. Okay, now I continued and I did that with all the different categories. Okay, I moved it over twice, got a decimal, times it by 1,900, and figured out what he spent. Okay, now the question was, in which category did he go over his monthly budget? So really, we could have stopped after this one if after each one of these you check the number. So here he spent 741, or no, that's what he's budgeted to spend, 741, but he actually spent 761. So that means that is the category that he went over his monthly budget. His budget was 741, he spent 761. So if we're confident we did that one correct, we wouldn't have to keep doing the rest. Now I did the rest just to show you how to do it, just in case in a different problem it wasn't the first one you tried. So if we did transportation, it's 475, and that's what's written in the chart here. Savings was 152, that's what's in the chart. So all these are the same, and if we didn't do housing costs to last, then we would have figured it out last. I just happened to do it first, so we could have stopped after this, because we see here was the budget, he actually spent that. Okay, so the answer was housing costs. 153, it's going to be a similar problem. This person has a total of $2,900 to spend, according to the monthly budget shown in the pie chart. The table shows how she actually spent her earnings, so the same type as last problem. When she underspent her monthly budget in one category. So this one, the only difference is she underspent in a category. So in 152 up here, he spent over his budget on one of the categories. Here we're looking for which one did she spend under. Okay. So we go through, we do the same thing. Okay. So I took, here's the number that we're basing it off of, 2,900. I did the percent. So again, I just went in the order that they have here. So housing costs, 33%. So I move that to the left, 0.33 times 2,900 gives me 957. Okay. Now, so what's key is these numbers here, so we don't get confused, are the budget numbers. Okay. And so we're looking for one of these to be bigger than one of these. Okay, because we want to know, or really what they're asking is, when is one of these smaller than these numbers over here? So she actually spent 990. Okay, her budget's 957. So this was bigger than the budget. Okay, transportation budget, 21% from the chart over here, times 2,900. The budget is 609. Okay, so here she actually spent 536. So that is lower. She actually underspent or spent less. So that's the one we want to look at. Okay. The credit card is the same. Both are 319. Groceries, she spent 562, which is more than the budget of 522. And the other is 493 and 493 for her budget. So those are the same. So the one that she underspent on is transportation. Now the question says by how much? Okay. So her budget was 609. She spent 536. Subtract. So she went $73 under budget. Okay. So the biggest key on this one is making sure you understand. Okay. This is the actual spent. And this is the budget or to be spent. Okay. And you're looking which one of these over here is less than one of these. Okay. All right, so let's go turn the page. Let's see if I can fit all this in here again. I'll try to get two problems in at the same time here. Let's see. Okay, so let me cut that out. It might look a little small, but okay. So let's look at 154 here. Again, very similar type of problem. He has a total of $3,200 to spend, according to the monthly budget. The table shows how much he actually spent. So this is what his last month expenses were, or what he actually spent. When he overspent in one category, by how much did he go over? Okay, so we're looking for which one of these is over what we find out over here. This is to be spent or the budget. Okay, so again, go through just like we've done in the other problems. If I start with housing costs, just because that's the order they go in here, I change that to 0.31 times the budget of $3,200. That's 992. Now again, this is the budget of how much he should spend. Now you see he actually spent over, and that's what we're looking for, is where did he overspend. So his housing costs are more, he actually spent more than he was budgeted for. Now again, I went through and showed you how to find all the other ones just in case. Okay. And how many of them met the budget, and even the savings, he's budgeted 608, but he only saved 480, so he actually went under. So if the question was, which one did he go under, that would be savings, but they want to know which one he went over. That's the housing cost. And then it asks by how much. So he spent 1,120. The budget was 992. Subtract, and he went $128 over budget. Okay, 155. This one looks like it's a little bit of a different problem, so let's read through this one, make sure we understand. It says the pie chart shows categories in the family's monthly budget and the percent of their income assigned to each category. So that information is the same. They have the budget with the percents. It says last month their total income was $3,800. Due to unexpected cold weather, their utility bills last month were $862, which was higher than the 22% budgeted. They compensated for the higher utilities bills by reducing the amount they put into savings last month. So what that means is however much more they had to pay for utilities, they took that much away from savings. And then the question is, how much did they put in savings? So this one, there's kind of a lot going on here. So first, we're going to figure out how much did they overspend for utilities. So we don't have to worry about all these other percentages. We need to worry about utilities right here. So that's 22%. So we wrote that as 0.22. Their monthly budget was $3,800. So they're budgeted to pay $836. Now, the paragraph says they had to pay more than that. Okay, it was colder, so they ended up having to pay more. So they paid $862. So we need to find out and how much more they paid. So we take the $862 minus the $836 that they had the budget for. So here's the first big piece of information. They went $26 over on their utility bill. So now we got to figure out how much are they going to save. Now, because they went 26 over on that, they're going to put 26 less into savings. So the first thing we do is find out how much were they planning on saving. They were planning on doing 10%, and then 10% of the 3,800 you multiply. So this is how much they were going to save. Now they went $26 over on utilities, so they're going to go $26 under on the savings. So they were going to do $380. They're going to take 26 away from that. So what they end up saving, putting into a savings account, is $354, letter D. Okay. All right, one more page here. Just return the page, page 67. Okay. Again, looks like some familiar problems here, so let's cut that out. All right, so 156. It says the pie chart shows their percent of the $1,600 monthly budget to be spent on each category. So just like all the problems we've looked at, the table shows how much she actually spent. So again, the table is actually spent. In which category did she spend less than the amount allotted? So they want to know in which category is the number here less than what we find out over here. Okay, so again, we go through. I started with housing costs because that was first on the list in the table. Change that to 0.41 times the 1,600, which was from here. And the budget was 656. So now we compare. Okay, 656 is what was budgeted. 608 is what she actually spent. So we were looking for where this was less, and we found it right away. 608 is less than the 656. So we could just stop right there and say, housing costs is where she underspent. Now again, I just showed you how to find them all and compare them. Okay, the rest are right on budget. So 272 for transportation, 208 for credit card, 352 for groceries, and 112 for cell phone. Okay. All right. Last type, which looks to be a little different. So we have half the problems are probably going to be very similar to each other. You just got to make sure you are understanding if they're looking for if they overspent or underspent. So 157 looks a little different. So it says in the beginning, this information is the same. We have a pie chart to budget her monthly earnings of $4,000. So that's one bit of key information. It says next month her housing costs will increase by $160. Okay, to compensate for this increase, she plans to cut on transportation costs by riding her bike to work instead of driving. If she does not cut back any other of her budget categories, what is the greatest percent of her earnings that can go towards transportation costs last month? So basically what's happening, it's kind of like 155. So there's going to be an increase in housing. She needs to take that and she's going to decrease transportation. And then the final answer there is figuring out what percent she could use for transportation. So there's a couple ways of doing this. So let's look at how I showed in here first. So the first thing I did was it says that her cost was going to increase by 160. Okay, so her cost was this, 1,440. It's going to increase by $160. So it's now going to be $1,600. Okay, so she's still making $4,000. So what I did was figured out what the amount or what the percent is that she would now be spending on housing. So instead of 1,440 out of 4,000, it's going to be 1,600 is what she's going to spend. The total is still 4,000. I divide that, I get 0.4, move it twice. So she is going to be paying or budgeting 40% for housing costs. Now, what I also did here is shown that this was an increase of 4% because she used to have a 36% budget. Now it's going to be 40. So this is an increase of 4%. Okay, so that means transportation is going to be lowered by 4%. Okay, so the transportation was 26%. I'm going to lower that by 4%, which brings us to 22%. Okay, there is a couple other ways of doing that problem. That's probably the quickest way. Okay, we could have, with knowing there's a increasing 160 to the housing, we could have subtracted 160 from the transportation and then found that number out of 4,000, and that would have gave us a percent also. So that would have been another way of doing that, meaning we could have said, because they increased this by 160, we could have said transportation was this. We're going to subtract by 160. So if we take 1,040 minus 160, that gives us 880. And then if we wanted to find what percent 880 is of 4,000, we take 880 divided by 4,000, and that equals 0.22 or 22%. So that's the other way of doing the problem. Okay. All right, so that is objective 35. So now what you'll be doing is going to the practice. Just make sure, yep, that was it for 35. So you're going to go to the money workbook, find practice 35, 36. Again, I think I put 12 of those on here. You do not need to go through every one of those. I don't think you're going to need that many. Do however many you need. Pick out ones that are different and maybe you have more trouble with. Then you'll check your answers here. And then you will move on to objective 36 after that, which I will have a video up for soon. Again, if you have any questions, let me know.